Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. Okay, let's take a quick look at some console commands in the command line. Anyway, there are some strange things here, so you don't need to dig too deep into them. Just know that these console commands can be linked with our ini file. Here, you can see we need to paste this part here. I pasted the wrong one. It should be this one. This gets the current communication protocol we are using. It's an Unreal particle URL. This kind of address format. And here, this is where you can override some configurations. Then we found that this configuration override actually didn't take effect. So how do we verify it? Well, actually here, we can access our current configuration. For example, using this command, we can use this to access our interface. Let's ignore it. We mainly need to access this data. You can see our current text streaming. Its port size is 160. But if you paste it in, it will find that it actually didn't take effect. Let's execute this access again. You can see this didn't take effect. It might be that its inner has changed its format again, which may have caused the previous commands. The commands are also different now. Don't worry about this. If you want to change it, actually, right here, because we know it ultimately still uses this ini method. So in this base ID field, you can see right here, you can directly change this value. In your in text, you just need to configure it. So you don't need to worry about this part. So just take a quick look at these things, and that's it. It might actually be different when you operate it. Yes, because you noticed that before. I remember in the previous version, direct reading and writing was fine. Maybe after the update, the configuration method changed again. It's not really necessary to dig into this. Then, what we need to note here is there are some variables that can be set through this specific. For example, some starting with R. These settings starting with S can be configured. So here we will demonstrate the most commonly used one. There are some variables here. They can be changed via the console command. For example, when we modify the log settings. So here, the most common one is T. Max, let's set it to 600. Then here, show FParse to check. We need to do it this way. Let's run it first and then proceed. You can see my frame rate here. It actually changes. Here we still use T. Max FPS. That's it. Let's set it to say 100. You see, the frame rate becomes 100. Actually, this is one of our most commonly used methods. The engine actually has a plugin now. It should be called console. There is one called console variable editor. Such a plugin, it can actually manage and control some of our editor information. This is a relatively new plugin. If you want to take a look at its specific related applications, there is actually something here. Because there is an official document, it has already covered it. Let me search for it for everyone. C1SO It's not here. Let me search for it for everyone. Wait a moment. It should be here. There is an in-depth article here. That's it. I'll take the address of this article. Let me clean it up. There's too much extra stuff here. There is a console here. Enter the variable. Everyone can take a look. I'll put the address of my article into the AMU project. I'll just put it here. Okay. This place has a series of these things. Just ignore it. You can just paste them all together later. This thing can be used to create a console wearable configuration, but actually it is a plugin shaped like a four-eyed creature. Bring it into our observation blueprint. This place, it is a plug J shaped like a four-eyed creature. It can monitor some things in place. For example, some variables. Then you can initialize it, because you might have some projects that require a unified ini configuration. So this thing is a new thing, relatively new. And what else do we have? And actually, what else haven't we covered? This file is in our group. It will be updated later. And I'll share with everyone too. These are some documents I looked at before. I roughly categorized them. Sometimes they come in handy. And this is the Unreal Engine, official WeChat public account. It regularly pushes many good articles. So what else haven't we covered? Actually, here. Because it is set to the command line. Actually, there is an execution pin. Yes, this place can receive command lines to execute some parameters inside. This hasn't been covered yet. And there is also a child manager. Hasn't been covered yet. And there is another way. So what else hasn't been covered? This should be covered later. That is to say here. You can, through appropriate, then configure some settings here. For example, some startup parameters. Then you can add some parameters here. Then you can do it in our UE command. For example, the command method. Let me search for it. Take a look. COM-UA. Yes, similar to the command method. You can go check it out. Yes, the official one also shared it before. That is how to read some commands in the command. Some commands when the engine starts. For example, what kind of work do we often do? That is, we will take the startup map or start the specified code and then write it into our parameters. That is, we will write it in this position. So this position, after you finish packaging, how do you handle it? Actually, it's also very simple. For example, we have a package one here. Then, in this place, create a new shortcut. There should be a create a shortcut option here. Then the shortcut, there is a properties option here. Then, in this place, you add some things later. Yes, add some parameters. For example, its port number, its initial map. Then, after parsing these parameters, you can use some static methods to retrieve them in C++. Then complete some initialization of your project. Overall, this configuration is still quite complex and extensive. We only covered a little bit. You just need to master. You only master. Let's just cover this part for now. If we have more time later, we'll integrate it into the practical exercises, so you can see how to use it. Okay, that's all for this chapter on configuration. Thank you, everyone.